now measure. Having studied the results of thousands of tests for cancer-causing substances, both with laboratory animals and with bacteria, Dr. Ames has concluded that the trace levels of natural and man-made carcinogens to which we are exposed daily are not causing cancer or any other health problems in humans.
So parts per billion is an incredibly low level, and you look at any complex mixture and you can find parts per billion of carcinogens, because half the chemicals they've ever tested, whether natural or man-made, are carcinogen. So you're always going to find parts per billion of carcinogen in complex mixtures. Whether it's any danger, I don't think so, and I think most responsible toxicologists don't. But environmental organizations make a living going to convincing newspaper reporters that that's a big thing, and there's been all this hysteria in the country. So, and this is kind of a reaction to that. It says the government isn't protecting us enough, they're carcinogens, and that's causing human cancer, which nobody working in epidemiology thinks, and nobody working in toxicology thinks, none of the experts.
Dr. Ames has concluded that the world is chock full of carcinogens and mutagens. If this is true, we might conclude that we live in a highly dangerous world. Then how is it possible to survive if everything from a potato to a petrochemical plant is adding its share of cancer-causing substances to our environment? Part of the answer lies in the body's natural defenses, which are pretty remarkable.
We're disposable. A whole lining of our digestive system is thrown away every day. The lining of your skin is thrown away, the surface of your eye. Anything exposed to the outside world, those cells are thrown away. So every day you're shedding the surface of your whole digestive system every day, because you're eating all kinds of mutagens and carcinogens. And this way, even if a cell gets mutated, it can't become a cancer cell because it's thrown away. So that's a good general defense against everything, man-made or natural chemicals. Plus there's a mucin layer that acts as a protection. Then we have all kinds of general detoxifying enzymes in our liver. We have DNA repair systems. So we have layers and layers of defenses. Lots of these are inducible defenses. So we're designed to live in a world of carcinogens.
Over the past 20 years, Ames has changed his opinions completely about the dangers of exposure to trace levels of chemicals. This has come from continuing and rigorous scientific research. But what do other scientists say? Are Ames' statements consistent with cancer trends in this country? To explore these questions, we're going to look into the field of epidemiology, the study of human diseases in population groups. Georgetown University Medical Center in Washington, D.C., one of the nation's leading medical schools. A senior fellow in public policy analysis is Dr. John Higginson, a native of England. He's credited with being the first to link cancer to environmental causes. He began his studies many years ago by investigating the causes of cancer in different countries.
At that time, we had been operating on the principle, and I'm talking of the very early 50s, that industrial pollution was a major cause. When we found that that was not the case, we had to find an explanation. We were then knowing about tobacco, alcohol, and a few others, but the rest we did not. So we made calculations and came to the conclusion that about 70 to 80% were modified by, quote, environment. Now, what did we mean then by environment? We meant literally everything to which a human is exposed, whether it be, as I said, diet, tobacco, industrial pollutants, his cultural or sexual habits.
Most scientists now agree that 70 to 80% of cancers are related to the body's total environment, meaning everything to which the body is exposed. Prior to Higginson, most scientists believed that viruses were the primary cause of cancer. In most cases, that is no longer true. Recent studies have concluded that levels of industrial carcinogens, which we hear so much about, have a negligible contribution to the cancer toll in this country. There are big fears, but little risks. On the other hand, simple lifestyle factors, cigarette smoking, dietary factors, overexposure to sunlight, have an enormous impact on cancer rates. For example, it's been calculated that you would have to breathe the air of Los Angeles for a year to get as much air pollution as you inhale in just one pack of filter cigarettes. How does this fit with Ames' view that the human body is designed to live in a world of carcinogens? Can lifestyle factors overwhelm the body's defenses? Is there a cancer epidemic? Or is it possible that the so-called cancer epidemic is a myth? At the Memorial Sloan Kettering Institute for Cancer Research in New York City, we spoke to Dr. Stephen Sternberg, chairman of the American Council on Science and Health. His field is pathology, the study of abnormal tissues and human disease.
There is so much information being promulgated concerning cancer that the impression is given, perhaps, that there is a cancer epidemic. And this is not so. With the exception of lung cancer, cancer has remained more or less steady for the last 30, 40, or 50 years. Some cancers vary slightly. They may go up in incidence or they may go down. On the other hand, lung cancer is truly epidemic. There is a significant increase in lung cancer in males, men, over the last 30 and 40 years, which has now reached a peak in women. In fact, lung cancer in women has now exceeded breast cancer. I've been a pathologist at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center for almost 40 years now, and I have seen thousands of patients who have had lung cancer, some cured, but the majority died of the disease. I'm an ex-smoker myself. I gave it up about 25 years ago, and one of the assets of a carcinogen such as a cigarette is that if you discontinue the smoking, you can recover from the ill effects.
As we've seen, part of the answer about cancer risk lies in the human body's built-in adaptability to low levels of carcinogens. Part of it related to the body's total environment, diet and lifestyle most of all. But there's another factor, and that is dose. How much of any single substance or chemical we're exposed to, how potent it is, how long we're exposed to it, all play a part. This leads us to the field of toxicology, the study of poisons and their effects on living organisms. It's an area that is often misunderstood by the public. Dr. Alice Ottoboni has spent 20 years with the Department of Public Health, state of California. A well-known writer and lecturer, she talks about public misconceptions.
One of these misconceptions is this idea that nature is good and man-made things or chemicals are bad. Because our bodies can't tell the difference between chemicals that are synthesized in the laboratory or chemicals that are produced in nature. Our bodies can only distinguish between chemicals that they can use to make more of themselves, more bone, more blood, more muscle, or to use for energy, and chemicals they can't use. The former we call biochemicals, and the latter we call foreign chemicals. Now, biochemicals may be natural or synthetic, and foreign chemicals may be natural or synthetic. In fact, probably the greatest number of foreign chemicals that we come in contact with are naturally occurring. Now, another misconception that people have that is really counterproductive to an understanding or reasonable evaluation of the subject of toxicity is that if a chemical is harmful in any amount, it's harmful in every amount. Many people feel this way. They hear, oh, a pesticide, that's harmful at a certain level, and then very tiny amounts must be just as harmful. And nothing could be further from the truth.
In California, however, concern about tiny amounts of toxic chemicals created a public referendum called Proposition 65. This resulted in passage of a law requiring special labeling and handling of all manner of common toxic substances found in the household. Does this make sense? Dr. Ottoboni talks about toxicity.
Children have died as a result of being given a container of salt or a salt cellar to play with, unobserved by mother. They ingest a lethal quantity for a child, which would be about maybe 2 tablespoons full, and they die. And yet salt is essential for every one of us for life. We need tiny amounts. Every chemical can be dangerous, and every chemical can be harmless. It depends upon how much and how often the exposure is.